Yo. That's what you're saying?
Yes,
is
that's
yo.
Yo.
We have Zane with us on the podcast today because he's pretty much done with school. And so we thought we'd lure him into the podcast. Is how this is going to go.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? Yeah, lure.
Yeah.
Can you even say that word?
Lure.
Oh, see, this is where very appropriate because this is where your American / Britishness comes together and you don't know how to say the words correctly.
Yeah,
and that's what we're talking about today is we are going to talk about how we have lived in London now for 6 years after moving here from the States and how the three of us are feeling about that. Obviously, we have two others that we haven't included in the conversation, but how the three of us are feeling about that and everything. But first, we also want to note, for those of you watching on YouTube, this is our first official YouTube video doing this. So hello.
Hello.
We would love if you guys would like and subscribe so more people can find us here. And then if you're listening on the podcast like you have been for a while, know that you can go over and find us on YouTube as well. We'll include the link in this podcast for you too. But something fun and new that you guys asked for and wanted to actually see us.
Yeah, you can see us talking.
So here we are, and we'll be honest, when you go on to look at us, you maybe can't tell right now, but if we do this too long, we are sweating a lot because it's really hot here in London right now.
Yeah, we're in a heat wave.
Yeah.
Like
a 2-3 week long heat wave, which is not normal for here. And it's supposed to be, we sound like we're complaining. So this would be one thing after living here for 6 years. It normally does not get this hot here. But with climate change and everything, it is getting more hot here. And so it has been like 88 and it's been in the 90s Fahrenheit, obviously.
And some of you might think that's not really that hot.
And it isn't if you have air conditioning.
Yeah.
We do not.
Yeah.
Painful.
And most people in London do not. Most places, the schools, all that stuff do not have aircon, and so we're melting.
Yeah. So actually, Zane is happy that he's home with us this week because he'd be in a suit this week.
In a full suit. That's right.
Yeah.
So we have lived here for 6 years. This month, it's exactly 6 years, and we thought we would just say a couple things of, we've shared some past podcasts of like UK culture versus US, and I'm sure we'll do plenty more of those because you guys seem to really like those. But we thought we would just chat about what it's like to be in a different country, in a different place after 6 years, and how we all are feeling. And we've included Zane because we thought it would be important to hear from him because you were 9.
Yeah.
Do the maths.
You were 9.
I was 9.
He was 9.
A little tiny baby man.
You were not a baby man. You were just a child.
I was a child.
Yes.
So, after 6 years, what do you guys, Zane, let's ask you first. How are you feeling after 6 years here?
I'm feeling like this is home, to be honest. We went back to the States last summer, and there was definitely an aura of, this really isn't our home anymore. We belong in London. We belong in the UK. Sure, it was fun. It was awesome to see all the people and visit all the places we hadn't really been in a while. But there was definitely a sense that we all kind of wanted to return home, home is the word I think.
It's London.
Is the word that we should be using for
London.
Yeah.
It's weird because people often say, "Are you going back home to visit?" And I think that's weird. Why are you saying that? Because I don't think of the States as home anymore. Like you said, I think of here as home. And so when someone says that, I'm like, "Oh, do you mean like to go back to see family and stuff?" Because that's not. I don't think of that as home anymore. Do you?
Mm-hmm. I think that's
where
where
we're from.
You and I obviously lived more of our life there, right? So there is still an aspect that I think I would always consider that my home country, and things like that. And so I think, so I think I will always probably call the United States or where we're from in Indiana home, because that is where we live most of our life. Now, if we live here forever, then maybe that eventually will change. But I do think, since we've lived here for 6 years, there's been something that I've really felt like when we first moved in here, we started to kind of do life here, and all that kind of stuff, that there was something that clicked for our family that was missing, I think, for us in the States a little bit. And there's something that feels more natural for our family specifically, that I think makes us feel more at home here in a lot of different ways. So
I think that too. I think there was something about, yeah, and it's weird because it's hard to describe, and maybe it'd be great to hear from some of you that have experienced this, of when you move someplace and there's just something, it just fits right. It wasn't that I don't think we recognized when we were living in the States and where we were living stuff that something didn't fit. I don't know that I had that feeling, so that's why it's kind of strange
I think that's
to
because
describe.
we already, that's the only thing we knew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's
So,
probably it.
but then when we moved here, and after being, I mean, of course, we had all the cultural adjustments that you do, and there's still stuff that's hard and that kind of thing. That hasn't gone away. But there also is then something that, I don't know how to describe it, that I would say after a couple months, I was like, oh, this place is, this is where we're supposed to be. And maybe I'm sure I've heard other people talk about this too. And I wish someone would come up with a word to describe. Maybe we need to invent a word. But it's just like it fits, it seems right. And then that part, it's not that it's comfortable, it just feels right. And it'd be weird if it had been the case just for the two of us. But I do feel like for
that's
you
for
kids, it was that way too.
I could agree with
Would
that.
you agree with that?
I think it was a rough.
Stripping
bit-
away some of the things that
bit
were
rough
hard.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
But just looking past that, definitely there was a sense that it worked for the entire family, not just you guys.
And that makes a big difference, obviously, when you're deciding to stay someplace,
Yeah.
if it's working for the whole family or not.
Yeah.
So that made a big
And I
difference.
think even, now knowing, I mean, when I was talking about how, like, we've lived more of our life in the States, like, so for Veda, this is home for her. Like, she's lived here longer than she did in the States.
So has Jude now.
And so has Jude now. So I think,
You haven't crossed that yet.
No,
But you're
that'll be
about-
18.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, stop talking about that age.
yeah. But yeah, I think, it's okay for them to actually say this is home,
Yeah.
But yeah.
They get very confused. I would say more each as they get older, they don't know how to say where they're from. Because people will obviously hear, at least for Jude, well, I mean, I guess for Veda, you don't often hear people ask her where she's from because she has more of a British accent. But then Jude's is like this mix. Yours is more American.
Yeah.
And your friends tease you about American things. But in general, you don't hear that a lot. We get it a lot still. Like, where are you from? Because people are interested when they hear stuff, accents from from the Americans.
Yeah.
Wow, I should have more tea.
I feel like the issue is we live in such a like no one really knows the state of Indiana. It's not like a big. It's like
Where's that? Near so that's near California. No.
no, wrong side of the country.
So near New
You just-
York,
the
near
default-
New
the
York,
default
New York
is
and
Chicago.
California are the two. We say Chicago, and
Chicago.
people
Most people
sometimes
know
recognize Chicago.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay, and we're just like, yeah, 3 hours from there, because Indianapolis, unless they know racing or something, they don't understand where that's from. So that's okay. But yeah, so we definitely feel like this feels like home. I think. What is there anything that you feel like is still hard about living here after 6 years? I'll go while you're thinking. I think the hardest thing would be not having certain people here. So if we could pick up some family, if we could pick up some friends and just like put them on our, maybe they don't have to live on our street, but if we could put them in our area that like, I ran into a friend this morning taking Veda to school who was walking her dog and stuff like that. Like if I could see some of our friends like that on a more regular basis than, the times we get to FaceTime them or texting them and stuff like that. And our family, obviously, that's the one piece that is hard, I think. What
I mean, this week, not having air conditioning is hard.
Yes, absolutely.
100%.
But yeah,
yes.
I think too. I think there's little things like, yes, I would, if we could have certain family and friends here, it'd be the best. Like it would be amazing. But I think there's also like little systems and little things of how certain things are done here that are still kind of frustrating and still hard and things like that. But you're used to it now because we have lived here for so long. It's like, that's just how they do things, like, or that's how things are done. And if you go to the States, I'm sure there's plenty of things in the States that frustrate people that are from other cultures or other countries.
I didn't understand, and this may have changed because it has been a year since we've been back, or almost a year. But like, I didn't understand why I couldn't just tap our cards places to pay for things because I'm so used to doing that
I
here.
think it's getting better
I think
there,
it's better
but,
now,
yeah.
but I was like, what do you mean you have to take my card at a restaurant and walk and go take my card. I don't trust that because I'm so used to them bringing things to us and tapping and all that. Anyways, that's a little minor thing. But what about you? What's the hardest thing for you? It might be the same things we've already said, and that's okay.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely, I think I really miss the people from the States that I got to know really well, and, you know, obviously our family, like you said. I don't know, just like, there's a lot of weird, like, random stuff that's just like, oh yeah, I get comments about my accent a lot, and that's like, it's like annoying most of the time because they're either really stereotypical or like really insensitive questions. But I think it's not
teenagers.
Yeah.
It's probably typical.
Fair enough. It is
Yeah.
probably just teenagers.
At a boys' school.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's basically the stuff that you guys have been saying already, I think.
Yeah, because I would say as adults, I don't typically get pretty, like if something major happens in the United States, we'll get people that are like, are you guys okay? How are you processing that? I'll get those questions, not the stuff that your friends say to you, which I think unfortunately is just teenage boys being teenage boys, which isn't still not cool for them to say that stuff because they wouldn't like if something like, you know, so that's part of it. But yeah, but I think that is definitely the people, sometimes some of the processes. But and it's hard. I think the hardest thing after being here 6 years is having some of our family and friends are like, oh, when are you coming back? As far as like, I think, you know, either moving back or obviously we'll go back and visit and stuff. But it's really hard to communicate that of like, this really does feel like home now, because I know it's hard for them to hear that. It would be hard for me to hear it if I was hearing a really close friend or family member say that, because it is so far away. So it's really hard to communicate that. But like, we do really feel that way. And there's just something about the place. Minus the non-air.
And and one of our favorite things to do actually is when people do come and visit us, to show them around and show them how we do life. And I think because of that, then they get to see kind of why we love being here, and like why maybe it fits for our family really well, and you know, and yeah, and I love being able to show off London, our city, like to others, and being able to do that, and that kind of thing. And so, but yeah, I mean, it is still hard. Like there's still like being from another culture, you know, is definitely gonna always be somewhat difficult.
No matter where you are. And you do, I've talked to lots of other Americans, well, not just Americans, but like, you know, friends from Germany, Sweden, stuff like that live here as well. Because we're in London, so there's just people from everywhere. And I think, you know, or our Kenyan friends, or, you know, whoever it may be, there's still always that weird, while we've said this feels like home, there's still always that kind of strange, like, where is my home? Like, now I think of like, where would I want to go to rest and feel the most comfortable and like be with my like our immediate family? I think of like London, but then there's always this weird, like you have two places now, if that makes any sense. Do you feel that way? 'Cause you were 9 when you moved here, so I was curious if you feel that way or not.
I mean, yeah, I feel like I've definitely developed more as a person here.
Well, yeah.
You've gone
That
through,
makes sense. Yeah.
Gone through a couple of things.
I mean, you kind of, well, you can't, on this video, you look,
He is taller
oh,
than
now
me.
you do look taller than me when you sit up straight. Don't sit up straight. It's the only time your mom will hear
bad posture.
Zane is taller than me. Yeah.
Yes. I'm about 2 inches now.
So you've developed in lots of ways, yes. So you feel like that.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It is.
I mean, you
It's a
feel
weird
like
feeling.
because we live in a very international city, like you kind of feel like you have a different perspective on the world. Like,
Yeah.
or at least, yeah. I mean, just it's not just. And that isn't. I'm not trying to make this sound bad, but it's just not just the U.S. Like your life isn't just. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like there are a lot of other things to
Yeah.
experience and do.
I think it's really cool that this city is just like everyone. It's not just British people, or not just, you know, British people and then one country, one other country that just like migrates here because that's what they do. I think it's cool that everyone has a place in London, and therefore there's not like a segregation, or I mean, that's probably not the right word for it, but there's not a sense that you don't belong.
Yeah.
Even if you're from a different country or you're from a different culture, you still belong in London, and
And I think maybe we would feel differently. I mean, I want to be clear that we're talking about London.
Yeah.
And so I know there have been other places in the UK we've traveled to, and we have noticed it's not quite like that.
Yeah.
There's not as much diversity, and I'm not hearing other accents or languages and stuff like that. So I do think, maybe if you lived in some place like New York City or something, like there are just certain places that for obvious reasons pool people from different countries and things like that. And so it is a very unique place to live to have that be the case. And so I want to be careful that we're not saying like all of the UK, because I'm very aware that that is not the case in all of the UK. And so, but it is a very unique place for London. So I think there is, after 6 years of being here, it doesn't even faze me. Like when there are often sometimes countries that I have to come home, like really small countries and stuff like that someone will say they're from, and this is my own ignorance in knowing things. Sometimes I have to come home and be like, where is that on the map, and figure that out and stuff like that. And that just didn't happen where we lived in the States before. Now, that doesn't mean it couldn't possibly have changed.
Or it didn't. Maybe we just weren't in the right places.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, like if you lived in a major city, it would be different.
But
people
that could
there.
have been that way in where we're from in Indiana too. But maybe we just weren't visiting those areas.
Well, and I do think the place where we were from has changed a lot in 6 years too. So we even noticed when we were back. But yeah, I think the other thing of living here for 6 years, at least in London, and most people in the States would be like, I'm sorry, you lived there 6 years and you've moved 3 times? Yes, we have moved 3 times. Not any of those times have been our choice.
We've moved 3 times within probably a quarter of a mile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's true.
Where in the States, you now again, it's a little different when you live in a major city and stuff like that, but it's just the way that rent is here. Landlords often decide they want to sell, or they want to do something else with their property, or they want to move back. Like we have friends that they're moving now because their landlord decided they wanted to move back into the property. I mean, it's very common that you would move, like you sign a contract for 2 or 3 years to stay in a place, sometimes a year, depending on things. And then when that's up, the landlord wants to do something different, usually sell or move in, or have somebody they know move in. And then that means you're looking for a new place to stay. That is something that I do not love.
No.
Yeah, it's not great. We've been kicked out 3 times.
Well, it's not kicked out.
Yes,
they've
2
sold.
times.
Yeah, twice they've sold. Like our first landlord felt so bad. He was like, I'm just going to put it on the market and see if it goes. And I thought, this is going to go. And it totally did. He was like, I'm so sorry it sold. I'm like, that's what you needed to do. It's not a big deal. But I think, it is common too. We do know some people that lived in their house for 11 years and their landlord, if they're renting, their landlord has somehow it's worked out fine. But other times.
But other times, we know people that move like every year.
I know. I'm thankful
so
that
hard.
hasn't. That's not going to happen with this place. We have a 3-year contract, right? That's going to be fine.
But yeah, that's just, I think, in a bigger city, my guess is it's probably similar to other cities in the States or around the world, that you just move a lot in bigger cities.
Yeah. So I think that would be one thing after 6 years. Moving 3 times in 6 years, to me, I would have said, what? Like if someone had told me we were going to do that, I would have been like, no. Considering we lived in the same house for 13 years, would have seemed very odd to me and everything.
Yeah.
So, and I think, something for you that now Zane is entering, for people listening in the UK or maybe different places that like the UK schooling system has kind of like infiltrated. There is, Zane is entering now into what is called his GCSE years.
Yep, there you go.
I can finally say it because for a long time I was getting all the letters mixed up. And so you take an exam in 10 subjects, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he will have 10 exams. Yay!
Well, actually, it's more than that. 'Cause most of the subjects are split into 2 or 3 papers.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
that's very fun.
So he'll have that this coming school year, like in the spring of next year.
You start studying for it.
And he has been already.
I mean, the entire past year has been like the course.
Prepping for it. So he does those, and then he's technically done with school. And so this is something after 6 years of living here that I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, it still confuses me, and we're still figuring this out. But then he can go on to do what is called, once he gets through his GCSEs, he then will go on to, it's called sixth form or A-levels. What else is it called? College. It's sometimes called college as well, not like what it is in the United States. And so then he does 2 years of studying 3 to 5 subjects. Is that right? It has to be at least 3, I think.
3 to 5.
I think
Although
most people do
Most people
3.
do 3 because 5 is
five's
like
a lot.
really
Yeah.
difficult.
So then he'll kind of narrow in what he wants to do. And that's really foreign to us because, you know, just how it is in the United States is like you're through high school, you're doing a mix of everything. And then you start to narrow in a little bit in university, but depending on your university, like
You probably still
it
have to
was
do a
still
lot of
very
general
broad.
things.
Yeah, a lot of general things we had to do the first couple of years before you really get into your major. And here it's much more like at 16, you're really kind of thinking, what direction do I want to go? If I want to do university or not. And if I do, what do I think I want to do? So like at 15, we're already having those conversations with you because he's got to start thinking through some of that.
I think too.
Bit.
I think because of how the system is too. That's why gap years are such a common thing.
Because they only
here.
go 3 years in university here.
Yeah. So basically, what
Well-
Zane could potentially do is then do the A levels and then take a year off and do some fun things or whatever he wants to do, and then go and do 3 years of university. So,
Yeah. Because they kind of consider those like A level, that time
As a
frame
year of
is like you've
university.
done a lot of work towards university, where of course that's different if you decide to be like a doctor. I mean, there are definitely things that would push you into more schooling and that kind of stuff. But, and it's weird for you because he explains it to all of us as if like it's just normal and he understands it better than we do. Because
I wouldn't say understand,
Well-
but I comprehend it.
maybe that's what it is. You comprehend it and everything. So that is something after living 6 years, we have just gotten used to a different schooling system. You know, a lot of the school starts much younger here as well. And so a lot of our friends that have moved back to the States, their kids have been, and it's not that they're like, I don't know what the right word is to say. Their kids have been more advanced in school just because they started school earlier and they teach things earlier here, and that kind of thing. And so I'm sure there's 1,000 studies of which is better. I don't really have an opinion on that.
Because
But
what Veda was in full day school at 3.5.
yeah,
So,
in nursery, like a preschool kind of thing. But it's
but they are teaching them things.
But it is like full time. You don't have to pay for it at school. You could go private, I'm sure, but and so that is the difference as well. But yeah, so I think we have said this before. The one thing we really appreciate about living here is people's. It's not to say everyone's perfect on this, but the fact that people take time off.
Yeah.
I mean, school. You get a lot more breaks in school because it's more like year round.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So it feels like just when they need a break. Or do you feel that way? Just
Yeah,
when you feel like you're
absolutely.
getting that a break comes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then people are serious about their vacation holiday
when
time.
they take their holidays. For sure. We talked about that before, but it's,
Yeah, that's why here, currently there is like just a lot of mass chaos with flights and things like that right now because when school goes out, everyone leaves. They take their holidays seriously and they try to do things and or the beaches get rammed and stuff like that. Well, part of that too is because no one has air conditioning, so you would just like to have your
the
body
water.
in the sea.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. What else about living here 6 years can you, Zane, or observations for you? Your brother and sister have for sure. Again, like we said, each of them has more of an accent as Veda was 2 when she moved here. So all of her schooling, all of her learning to read, all of that stuff has happened with British accent. Well, I mean, not all of her teachers have had British accents, but she definitely has picked that up.
Just how they sound things out and things like that.
I mean, and Jude, it's funny because he will often
He randomly says a word.
He will say stuff a lot. He's very like, I am an American. I do not have a British accent. And then we can't point it out to him because he gets mad when he says mummy all the time. And like he says stuff all the time that often when we're talking to somebody, they'll be like, oh my gosh, Jude sounds more British than any of your kids. He's like, I do not. Like, he
does get defensive.
But he does. You definitely very much so
Yeah.
clearly you still have your American accent.
I mean, my teacher from year 6 or 5th grade or whatever that would be.
5th grade,
yeah. Told me that, well, he's from Scotland, and he just sort of let his accent blend into the British scene, and he was like, you should keep yours.
Because that's when you were all like, we're
Yeah.
kind of trying to sound British.
And I was trying to like fit in because that's what I was doing at
It's okay. That's
whatever
what everyone does at
you're
that
that-
age.
whatever age that was.
Yeah. It's a very natural thing to try to fit
Yeah,
into.
and I just think it's cool to keep it just.
Now, you do say, well, you don't have a British accent. You say phrases that I would never hear you probably say in the United States. That's for sure. And sometimes when you're gaming with your friends, because he uses this app to talk to his Discord.
Yeah, you don't get together with your friends and play video games. You play video games.
That's not true. They do get together here sometimes, but your friends do
Well, that's
live
more-
pretty far around,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
outside
most
of
online,
London and
right,
stuff.
which is
so they'll be online talking to one another, and sometimes you do suddenly. I'll hear your accent. You'll put on a British accent a little bit. I don't think you know you're doing it,
Probably not.
but it's funny because that's when I hear you do it. Sometimes it's like if you're mad at one of your friends or something on there. Sometimes I'll hear you say something, and I'm like, oh.
Zane, what would be one of your favorite like sayings?
Not-
now appropriately.
Wait,
Something
I'll just say that.
appropriate.
Appropriate because yeah.
I don't know. It's
Now
a
you're trying to
big
think if it's
question.
appropriate.
Like in it.
Yeah.
In
In
it,
it is funny.
In it.
And how use that in a sentence? How would you say that for context for people?
Like it's like ain't it, but it's shortened. So like
you can't think of one.
I
That's all right.
I can't. My mind's blank. on an
That's
example,
cool, isn't
but-
it? Kind
Yeah,
of thing.
something like
yeah.
In it, bro.
In
No,
it, bro.
I knew you were gonna put bruv. I think that's a thing internationally, though. I don't
Yeah.
think bruv is a thing. But I mean, there are words that Zane will use to describe things, and when he's in just a normal conversation, that I always have to stop and be like, "No 15-year-old uses that word," and you're like, "Yes, they do. That's my friends say that word all the time."
Yeah.
And it's often it's more of a British word.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of one right now, but there are often things that you guys will. I would like to know. You guys will have to tell us if literally is something that kids are saying in the States, because you guys say it all the time. That now I have started saying it.
Instead of literally.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
literally.
yes, but like they will describe something and say the teacher literally, and like I don't know if our kids would have described even like someone saying something with
yeah.
that word. I know it's the fact that they're saying literally and like saying it all out. I clearly cannot do a British accent.
Because your literacy is literally not good. I'm sorry.
And I would say the two of us often we have not developed accents by any means,
Gosh,
but
no.
I will sometimes say something and you will like laugh. Like I will inflect at the end of a sentence.
Yeah, there's definitely different ways of how when they're speaking, we've kind of adapted.
Yeah,
a little
and
bit.
I'm not doing that on purpose. It's just sometimes you pick up some of that stuff. So one of the things may be like, what are you doing this weekend? Like weekend instead of weekend. Like you kind of inflect a little bit at the end of the sentence. Is that the right word? Inflect?
I don't know.
I don't know what that
I don't
would
know
be
what
if that
in-
happens there.
inflect
I'm not.
means, so-
Yeah.
I'm not a language expert, but I think both of us do that. Or sometimes I hear you when you say when we're out. If you accidentally bump into somebody, what would you say?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, but you sometimes say it with a British accent. I've heard you do it more
Sorry?
out in the city. So,
Sorry?
yeah.
Sorry.
You do that.
don't know.
Or you say, thanks, mate, cheers, mate, things like
Yeah.
that, which if we said that in the United States, I think people would be like, what are you trying to... People actually would probably say, are you trying to be Australian? Which is,
Maybe.
But yeah, that's something
Yeah.
that clearly...
Mate has definitely, I think, taken over in our family. Like
I don't say it because it's weird to me, but
like,
like
Jude's,
men
like,
and women
really
say
into
it to me sometimes of like thanks mate. Like some guy said that to me when I was dropping off stuff. I was like, oh, that's weird.
yeah. It's kind of like saying like thanks man.
Yeah. A
Like,
lot
as
of
a
times for
10-year-old.
women they'll say love or darling or something like that, and it's not meant as like
Yeah.
it's not
It's
derogatory.
a platonic thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you're either mate or love. Like it's like those, it feels like those are the two really common ones.
Yeah.
But we often get that question from you guys if everyone has accents now, and so that's a Veda, yes, with a weird mix. It's
Yeah,
mixed
she's
Yes,
a weird mix.
sometimes
for you.
like Well, yes.
Only when you're mad.
Only when I'm mad.
With your friends. And then us is like very random, very occasional things, except for words that we probably
And Jude
use.
doesn't want one, but he does have one.
But he has one. Yeah.
Which we are hoping to do some summertime videos. We're saying summertime, realizing that you guys in the States are likely finishing summer and starting school in August. But in August, we're going to do a fun series that we'll try to involve the kids in and stuff. But we'll also wanted to do it to have you guys have more fun on YouTube here. So yeah, so it's been 6 years we've lived here. Those are a couple of our observations of things and things that we love about here. And it really does feel like home. I don't know that I would have thought that when we moved here 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Landing and living.
I mean, I can't believe it's been 6 years. Like,
No.
it's gone
Yeah,
so fast.
yeah.
The only time I can tell that it's 6 years, I mean, all of you have drastically changed. And Jude is about ready to go through a change, I'm sure, too. But, like, looking at pictures of you kids when you moved here. I mean, your sister was this little nugget 2-year-old. Like, she just looks so drastically
I mean, she was
different.
still in a, like, travel crib thing.
Yeah, exactly. A travel cot. So, like, those are when I look at some of that stuff and I see the pictures. I'm like, oh, my gosh, that's so long ago. But it was also feels like it was just yesterday.
Yeah.
And Zane, I will say, has been the one that has gone through the hardest adjustment of living here and everything like that, because he was already in school in the States, so he had to get used to schooling here. He left friends, had to make new friends here. Those first 2 years were really difficult.
Yeah.
And then you got through those, which it was really hard. And then you went to secondary school and you have a really fun group of friends.
Yeah.
Now. And so it took some time. And so if you're anybody that is like moving, even states, because I know that's hard, or moving schools and stuff, like it does take time. And there were definitely a lot of times where we said, like, what have we done? We've ruined your life and stuff like that.
More stuff to talk to my therapist about.
Yes. We will pay for therapy for that. But now you really have,
Your
you've
friends are
matured a lot,
amazing.
and you've got
Yeah.
a good friend group and stuff like that. So, yes. Well, wonderful. This is the conclusion of our podcast, I think.
Yeah. I think so.
Of the one about living in London for 6 years. We would love to hear from you guys. Again, we will always are listening to you of what you want to hear about, of what it's like to live in the UK versus being in the States and that kind of stuff, or just fun, quirky things about it as well. And we'll talk to you about that too. If you're listening on the podcast, remember you can check out us here on YouTube, and on YouTube, subscribe and everything so you can continue to see what we have here. Also wanted you to know there are some fun things on our website at laurentcollectivelearning.com, which you can check out. And there's all kinds of free downloads, everything from stuff to help in your family, to help in your business. You can just grab those free downloads on there. And there's all kinds of stuff too. If you're looking for a certain podcast, you can look by category and find it too.
Yeah.
I think that's all.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's a lot, but that's it.
That was a lot.
Yes.
Do you want to say goodbye? You want to sign us off?
No.
Thanks, Zane. Well, that's it for us now. And we will talk to you guys soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.